One. Hi, everyone. I'm Keith Collins here in Nashville, Indiana, and I am happy to be introducing to our online audience Zoe Vandermeer. Hi, Zoe.
Hi, Keith.
How are you doing?
I'm doing well. And yourself?
Fantastic. Thanks. Really looking forward to talking with you today. Um, Zoe is going to be doing her concert here, and she has with her Welsh triple harp, and she has with her voice. And we're going to hear from her today a bit before we hear her main show about where she's coming from with this music, how she got involved with it, and a little bit more about her instrument and a little bit about her journey, the music you're going to hear today. And as we go along, there'll be some demonstrations with the instrument itself. And we will just sort of wrap it up at the end with her telling us a bit about what it's been like learning to sing while playing this harp, which of course is something that was very much done, up until the 18th, 19th century. All right, Zoe, so tell us, how in the world did all of this start? How did you get involved in Welsh harp?
Okay. Thank you, Keith. First of all, I would like to say some thank yous before we begin. My first thank you is to the Bloomington Early Music Festival for inviting me to participate in the 2024 festival. Special thanks to three different churches, the UCC Tolland, UCC Stores, and the St. John's Episcopal Church in Vernon for providing recording locations and time and support. For Bill Taylor, harpist and harp maker. For Devine Sutherland in Scotland, who helped me with the Scots Gaelic pronunciations. Thank you, Devine. For John Feeney of the Irish School in Danbury, Connecticut, with his help in the Irish Gaelic. And Stuart Orme at the Cromwell Museum in England. Keith Sanger's immense amount of study and research, which I continue to study, has been enormously helpful. So by the time I was 5, and I remember back as far as age 3, I was singing and writing poetry and banging on the piano. My mother was a very fine pianist. And by the time I was 5, I do remember very clearly that I had at the piano a box underneath the piano. That was my drum for my feet. I had a toy flute. I had paper on the piano with my poetry. And then I had a hand for the piano. So hand on the flute, hand on the piano, foot on the... And that pretty much describes me, I would say. So I've been composing songs and writing poetry ever since. And
Amazing.
I'm sorry?
Amazing.
I started taking piano lessons and singing in choirs when I was 6. By the time I was 12, I was accompanying choirs. By the time I was 14, I started private voice lessons. And when I was also playing the flute in the concert band. And when I was 15, a friend of mine played recorder quite seriously. And she invited me to perform with her trio. And it was there that I got to know some of the music of John Dowland and the Shakespeare songs and all of that. And I just fell in love with it. When I was 17, I got my first harpsichord. And pretty much then I was unstoppable. I was a composition major in Manhattan School of Music for a while, and I was the only tonal music representative, and I was accepted on my song cycle for voice and piano. I had orchestral premieres of my music, and so it's gone on. So in some ways, I feel that I am part bard and part something. So I did a lot of concerts after coming back from Scotland where I accompanied my singing on harpsichord, as well as, of course, singing with ensembles. And I loved it, but I found that it was sometimes a little bit too restrictive because of the lack of dynamic variation in color. And also I wanted to have an opportunity to face the audience. So I got a small Italian 16th century style spinet, and made by Gary Blaze. It was a lovely instrument. And so I was able to face the audience with that. And that was wonderful. But I was still hankering for that different kind of a sound. And so I got involved in the lever harp. I taught myself how to play. And then I graduated to the triple harp, the Italian triple harp. And I have to say that for the first 6 months, I just looked at it because it's just a very challenging instrument. And then I did make the decision to proceed with the triple strung instrument because I wanted to have access to more chromatics because of the music that I wanted to do, of John Dowland, of Purcell, of all of these wonderful composers of the Baroque period. And so it was a very long process. And I tried initially the thumb under technique, and I did that for quite a while. And then I switched to the thumb over technique, which actually made it easier for me in what I was doing. So I would like to say something about my my Welsh triple harp here. This was especially made for me by Robin Ward in the Birmingham area of the UK. He's a harpist and harp maker. And I wanted to have a harp that was compact enough that I could travel with it on the airplane. And I was fascinated by the Welsh triple harp. And so he made this lovely harp for me. It's 5'3" and it fits exactly in the box that he made into the airplane extra baggage, oversized baggage. So I was very fortunate with that. It has a lovely tone. And he patterned it after a harp at St. Fagan's Museum in Cardiff in Wales. So it's been a number of places. It's, of course, driving across country in my car. It's been to California, of course, New York, and Utah when I did an event for the American Harp Society Institute in 2015. It's been to Brazil also in 2015. It prefers not to do those long distance travels.
And if I could ask, when was that harp built for you?
This was built, I picked it up in spring of 2014, and he'd been working on it for a while. So it's stood the test of time. It's now 10 years old, and yeah, I love it very much. So the triple harp has the 3 rows of strings, and the two, for those who may not be familiar with this, the 2 outer rows are the equivalent of the white notes on the piano, and the inner row is the equivalent of the black notes on the piano, with the addition of D sharp and E flat, and G sharp and A flat, so you have that opportunity to have those different kinds of tunings there. So Bassett Jones, who was born in 1809 to 1869, he became involved in harp restoration of specifically the Welsh triple harps because a lot of them were bowing like this here at the top, and he was doing a lot of repair. And through his repair, he discovered that if he laminated the neck, you would have that extra strength. And in fact, this is exactly what Robin did with my Welsh triple harp. It's very sturdy. He didn't do several layers like this. He has one big strip, one thick big strip in the middle from the 2, so it's a sandwich basically. And as you can see, it's doing nicely.
Yeah.
So Jean Lefleur became the harpist to Henrietta Maria, the Queen, in 1629, and later in 1660, Charles Evans, through 1683, was His Majesty's harper on the Italian harp. So there were Welsh harpers in England, and some of the Welsh harpers in the 18th century include William Powell, who was played Handel's harp concerto.
Right.
And
yeah, important. I think I just want to interject here. Important to note that when Handel wrote that, this is the instrument he was writing for. It was a
That's
literally
right.
Welsh triple harp. It was not the modern arpa doppia, the Italian version. And
That's
most people
right.
don't realize that. And part of the difference is, these Welsh triple harps have that fantastic bass line down there, a bass sound, I mean, that is hard to do on a I find on an Italian triple unless you play really close down on the fingerboard. Sorry to interrupt you, but I thought that was
No, no,
important.
no, no.
Please
So,
continue.
yeah. So, Duke of Chandos actually was a patron of William Powell,
Yeah.
and so the Welsh harp is specified, and I suspect that it was also the Welsh harp that played in Giulio Cesare. So another harper of that 18th century time is John Perry, and he has the first publication of Welsh harp music in 1742. I forgot to mention also, important, that William Powell was the king's harper starting in 1736. Then we move forward into the 18th century with a Welsh harpist, composer, and arranger Edward Jones, 1752 to 1824, and he played in London. And he was fascinated with the history of the Welsh harp and the harps in general. So he wrote a lot of information about this that goes, he has some volumes. And one of them is the first one in 1784. And it has a lot of music and his arrangements. And I'm going to demonstrate for you now some of the aspects of the Welsh triple harp from one of the pieces that's in my program, the Inspired Bard, showing you what are called the unisons, the outer strings that are played at the same time, or in this case, actually alternating. So, the unisons, right? Okay, so just a little excerpt from, this is variation number 5 in the Inspired Bard, which he says, which Edward Jones says, that may have actually been written by a woman. Okay, here we go.
So lovely. And
He's a beautiful fan.
listen to that. And for our audience that may not know about harping, to get that repeated note sound, if it were a single row of strings, you'd have to do some really weird, on one string, exactly, or something like that.
Actually, it's very interesting because I was looking through one of Edward Jones's books just the other day, and I found a piece where just what you said, it's notated thumb, which is 0, 1 is actually our second finger, like this. Now, in order to do this, I have to keep my hand very still. I'm cheating, I got my arm in the wood. But and I can only do it so fast, but if I do this, all right. So, how to arrange what we now call folk songs. So many different ways that we can do it, right? So on the Irish harp, melody, which has such sustained, beautiful sounds, you don't have to do too much with the other hand, in my case, the left hand. I should also note before I forget that the Welsh harp is traditionally on the left shoulder, but because I am oriented for also continue playing on the harpsichord, for that it's much easier for me to have it on my right shoulder.
And interestingly, it was the same for Wales, Gaelic speaking Scotland, and Ireland. All of their harps were played on the left shoulder. And like you, I can't possibly make that switch at this point in my life. We just learn from an early age: left hand bass, right hand treble.
That's right, left hand bass, right hand melody. Yeah. So this is the tune of David of the White Rock, David Owen, who died at an early age of 29, and he had requested that that this piece be played at his burial, at his funeral. Okay, so the first version I'm going to play for you is just a snippet from the Edward Jones. It's a very basic version. I will be omitting his variations and that sort of thing. And then I'm going to play a section of the introduction of the Dying Bard to his harp, the same tune that was set by Joseph Haydn from the Welsh songs that editor George Thompson put together. And you will see, I think, a rather vast difference. But it begs the question, what are our parameters when we are arranging tunes? Okay? So...
Wonderfully beautiful.
So also, I had to arrange his arrangement so that it would actually work on the Welsh harp, because although it says it's for a pedal harp or piano or pedal, a forte piano or pedal harp, didn't quite work exactly the way that he did it. So I did make it a little bit more comfortable on the Welsh harp. Interesting, though, the differences. And in the O'Carolan pieces, again, how much do we play in the bass? What do we do? How much melody do we do? And I took some of my cues from some of the pieces in the Bunting book, his volume 1, the General Collection of Ancient Irish, and in particular the song about tuning the harp.
Yeah.
So in the tuning the harp piece, it has the pentatonic scale, and then it has repeated notes, and I did take the liberty, as you will hear, in maybe highlighting a little bit more of those repeated notes. So I don't have it in front of me right now, because this I did. Right? So, and these patterns. So one of the things I came across was King Edward I, and in the Haydn Welsh songs about King Edward I slaying 1,000 bards, and I started looking into it to see if that actually really happened. And I heard that it was a legend, but I kept digging. And there is the famous ode by Thomas Gray in 1757. Where he talks about that. I'm going to read it here. What George Thompson has at the beginning of his preface to the Haydn Welsh songs. Just give me a moment here. Oh, yes. So he says, he's quoting here, Mr. Owen says, the assertions respecting the cruelty of King Edward I towards the Welsh bards have not any good foundation, which I shall prove by the following fact, that from the time of Edward to the end of the reign of Elizabeth, the productions of the bards were so numerous that Mr. Owen Jones, in forming a collection for that period, had already transcribed between 50 and 60 volumes, and the work is not yet completed. The Edict of Edward seems to have been issued only to overawe the bards, for it does not appear to have been ever put into execution. Otherwise, those who lived at the time and in the following age would have noticed such an instance in some way or other. The fact, however, of the bards assuming fictitious names under which they issued their literary productions shows that they were under some apprehension, and which might probably have been produced by the said edict or proclamation.
Mm.
So that's
right.
And, I would also like to mention from this same publication about Queen Elizabeth I, 1568. She sent out commissioners to see what was going on in Wales with those bards. And I will read also from the same publication excerpt there to give you an idea. The commissioners are then directed to summon all persons in North Wales intending to get their livings as minstrels, rhymers, and bards to appear before them to show their learnings, and to call to assist their judgment such expert men in the faculty of the Welsh music as they might choose, admit to the accustomed degrees such as they found worthy, and authorize them to follow their professions according to each of their degrees, but that they should, in the Queen's name, command those found not worthy to betake themselves for some honest labor to which they were equal, on pain of being apprehended and punished as vagabonds. On that occasion, 55 persons received their degrees as chief bards or as teachers, or were admitted as probationary students, some of vocal music, some of the harp, and others of the crwth, but the number dismissed as unworthy of exercising the profession is not mentioned.
Right. And, I think our audience might be interested to know that part of the reason that the people in power had such concerns about both the poets and the harpers was because the native population, the Welsh speakers and the Gaelic speakers, both in Ireland and Scotland, for them, the power of a poet was physical, that if they made a poem about you that was detrimental, it could cause physical harm to your person. And this belief goes back, 1,000 years.
Yeah,
to be in disrepute amongst the poets and the harpers was something you wanted to avoid at all costs. And even, so that when there was a dissension against English rule or even local rule that was, inspired by English laws, the harpers and the poets would oftentimes be very helpful with spreading information about what.
Absolutely.
And that's why these things tended to happen. Please continue. Sorry.
Then I found in one source that it was stated that Cromwell had banished the bards in 1650. And so I was trying to find more answers about that, and very kindly I got a reply from Stuart Orme from the Cromwell Museum in England, and he says, I've looked at the list of legislation for the cited date of 1650, and there is no parliamentary act or ordinance that appears, without going into the detail of the bills, to issue such a ban. Parliament had already placed restrictions on the performance of music in church, Puritans believing that such music was a distraction from the more important parts of worship in their minds, such as a prayer and sermons. There was no restriction, though, on the performance of secular music, and Cromwell himself loved such performances and had an organ installed at Hampton Court for recitals. So I would say, no, he didn't. Then we have Queen Elizabeth I. Back to Queen Elizabeth I. did she issue the edict in 1603 to banish the harpers, have them executed, and burn the harps? So from the William H. Grattan Flood 1905 book, A History of Irish Music, Mr. Grattan says, in January 28, 1603, a proclamation was issued by Lord President of Munster by the terms of which the Marshal of the province was strictly charged to exterminate by martial law all manner of bards, harpers, etc. Within 10 days of the proclamation, Queen Elizabeth herself ordered Lord Barrymore to hang the harpers wherever found and destroy their instruments. True or not true? So there are 2 copies of the, quote, Edict of the Lord President of Munster among the Harley manuscripts in the British Library, and bear the dates of the 20th and 27th of January of 1603. And this says, the edict required the marshal of that province to execute by martial law in and throughout the whole province of Munster all idle men, beggars, vagabonds, harpers, rhymers, bards, who were traveling or living there, who did not have a letter or bill under his master's hand, or a license or passport of his captain or martial officer to testify as to whose servant he was. But to hang all harpers, there is no firm evidence. So, question mark?
Yeah. Right. And, in traditional Gaelic culture, before colonization and plantation had happened in Ireland, the harpers and the poets were attached to chieftains, a noble house, or a really wealthy landowner. And as that system fell apart, they all became itinerant. And so this is exactly what's going on right here. And ultimately, this position of a harper, a singer, and a poet all becomes wrapped up into one. And so, ultimately, in Ireland at any rate, that's where Turlough O'Carolan sort of is the last of that generation.
Yes, exactly. And he was born after Cromwell died. He was born in 1670 and passed away in 1738. And his legacy is enormous. He's composed well over 200 wonderful pieces of music. By the time he was 18, sadly, he became blind because of smallpox, and he was fortunate to get harp lessons, and he then had patrons, and he wrote music for his patrons. So that brings us to the Belfast Harp Festival. So the harp was becoming less favorable. We had more interest in the violin and the viol and other instruments, and there were political considerations and social, so on. Mm-hmm. So the harp was seemingly dying out. In 1792, Edward Bunting was hired at age 19 to transcribe the 11 harpists at the Belfast Harp Festival in 1792. And he came out with 3 volumes, 1796, 1809, and 1840 of this music. Yes, he did put his own arrangements, so we're back to arrangements on that. I'd also like to mention that O'Carolan himself was influenced by Corelli, and in the Carolyn's Concerto, which is a short, lovely little piece in the program, you will hear that. In some of the other pieces I have in the program by O'Carolan, I have been more sparse in my arranging, thinking of the situation that he may have been in. Farewell to music. If I were dying, I would probably not want to put in or have the energy a whole bunch of notes in my left hand. So there is that. In the Carolyn's Welcome, I did experiment a bit. You'll hear a little bit more of Zoe there in the arrangement, but still holding true to octaves and fifths and taking my cues from an outlined triad in the melody, which gave me, quote, license to maybe do some of that in my left hand. Yeah. So important considerations. And I would like to speak a little bit about the process of this project, doing this project, and also what I have learned about my singing in playing the harp. The process of recording is already a challenging one. The process of video recording is yet a whole other animal. Is my hair in place? What about the sound of the motorcycle that didn't have a muffler go by? When I was just at that moment when it was like, I have to do it again. So I'm now referring to recording, particularly video recording, as the art of the repeat. So what I found in the process when I was, because of the trucks and things going by, motorcycles, sirens, lawnmowers, which I think you can actually hear one now in the background, is digging deeper, digging deeper, digging deeper. Every time, aligning myself, my being, my sense of my voice, my throat for a song, with the nerves and fingertips and how I was going to play into that moment, waiting for that moment, that special moment, which I can feel a moment happen when I need to start. It's hard to describe. Many things about music are hard to describe. But I could feel like there was a moment to start. And so there would be that moment, a special kind of silence. And then everything was aligned. And then the picture of, when I was singing, the picture of the story, and I was there and what was happening. And then it was like, go, right? And again, and again, and again. So what does it mean to me? How much nuance can I give to this? Do I use my voice differently? Do I use my voice the same for all of these pieces in this program? And I took what I would probably call some risks. I did not use my voice the same in every piece, as you will hear. So in the Lament of Mary Queen of Scots, the Robert Burns, I decided to do that a cappella, and I decided to do it actually in this room. And I decided to do it very quietly, as if I were in the prison. And not much vibrato, whereas the song right before that, the Tommaso Giordani's version of the same topic, it's more, it's classical, it's more, there's more going on there, but still trying to bring that same element through in the music. In the Lament of Owen Roe O'Neill, that was a challenge for me because I wanted to give so much more with my voice, and there's a moment when I do give more with my voice. I'm sure you'll hear it. But again, how far can I take it down, and how much can I expand on that? In the Gaelic, Scots Gaelic songs, you'll hear some different approaches to that. But some of the things that I have learned from playing the harp, I've been doing this for a while now, is patience. It's a difficult instrument, and it's such a delicate sound. And my voice has a propensity, as in operatic terms, a dramatic coloratura soprano, to be rather loud and big. So I have a great range of dynamics in my voice. So where is that median point with the harp? Playing harp has taught me how to listen in different ways than being a singer only. It has taught me how to, as I was saying previously about the moment in the recording process, to align my body, literally my nerves, my breathing, the chatter in my mind, getting rid of the chatter of my mind, focus on my fingertips and how I'm going to play that, and how that touch of the string and my voice are united. I've also, sometimes you'll hear that my harp leads and my voice follows, or my voice starts, so there's always that kind of play. So I could say that the harp sings and speaks and the voice plays. Right. They're constantly working in tandem. Um, I've also learned that with my voice, sometimes I don't need to embellish more on the harp. And sometimes on the harp, with something going on, I may need less in the voice or more in the voice, depending.
Right.
And these are just some of the things that I've learned. It is a very humbling thing to play the harp, and I mean just to play the harp. But it's a very humbling thing to play the harp and sing, because I feel that I am at the service of the harp.
And you speak about the difficulty, just of playing harp without the added issue of trying to sing while doing it. So here's something I think your audience is going to want to know: how many strings do you have to tune?
Well, tuning my harp, when I do it, the full, all of the strings, I haven't counted them, but it's like almost 100. So there's the lute player. It's like, yeah, we're done. And I'm still going, yeah, I gotta do these. I'm sorry, but yeah, I mean, it can take anywhere from a mere 10 minutes to 15 minutes to half an hour, depending on how far the harp has gotten out with weather conditions and that sort of a thing. So preparing for recording, for video recording, performance, I'm there well ahead of time, usually a couple of hours ahead of time, because I need to tune my harp, I need to warm up my fingers, I need to warm up my voice, I need to get into the performance mode. And
there's also the issue of letting the instrument acclimate to the new space. The new
absolutely.
Is the humidity right? Is the temperature right?
Yes, this was very, very, very important considerations, and the presenters I've worked with are familiar with my questions on what is the temperature, are there any drafts, what is the humidity like, how soon can I get in, all these kinds of things. So absolutely.
Wow. Well, I know you have spent a lot of time getting this program together, and it certainly shows in our talking here today. I am super excited to hear how this is going to, how it's going to come across for our audience. They're in for a really fantastic treat, and something that I don't think has ever really happened for the Bloomington Early Music Festival audience ever, to have someone sing and play harp, especially this repertoire. I'm excited. I'm sure our audience will be absolutely have their socks knocked clean off. I can't wait. Gosh, well, our time on Zoom is about to end, and I'm afraid they'll kick us off. So before they do that, I want to take a chance to thank you so very much for talking with me and our audience today. I know that we are all super excited for this show. Again, I've been talking with Zoe Vandermeer, whose a concert of vocal music and Welsh harp music will be coming up here soon.
Thank you so much, Keith.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Okay. Yay. Fantastic. So what I'll do is now I'm going to stop the recording.
Okay.
Find the right button.